Hello, everyone. Before we start the podcast, I'd like to mention Pro Political Gear. Check out propoliticalgear.com for your political apparel today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Political Pod. I am your host, Chris Caputo, alongside me, my co-host, Andrew Kornick, and we're doing things a little bit differently today. This time, we actually have a different structure of things. We still have clips and all that, but this time, it's going to work, I think, a little bit more smoother. So we're gonna get used to the new transition. We're only getting better at this, so I can't wait. It's very exciting, and again, lots of news to drop. We got George Santos, who has been charged with fraud. We have Elon Musk stepping down as Twitter CEO. We have Vice being bought by George Soros, Trump's town hall, and many other things to come. So sit back, relax, as we give you the news.
Let me be clear.
You peddle false narrative.
Sexy boo.
We'll see who cancels who.
Watch me.
So, in the last episode, we talked about the great George Santos, and there's more to talk about with this guy. So, there's a good chance that he could be behind bars. So, he's being charged with fraud, okay? And he has a 13-count indictment returned by federal grand jury Tuesday. Includes, this is what he has, 7 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of money laundering, 2 counts of making material false statements to the House of Representatives, and he's got 1 count of theft of public funds. If convicted, he could end up to 20 years in prison for the most serious charges, and that is not to be taken lightly. I mean, this guy, time and time again, we already said it on the show numerous amount of times, how many lies that he presents to the table, and if you're George Santos, you're gonna have to pray every single night that these charges do not go through. Because it's really gonna be scary for him to be locked up for 20 years. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of years, dude. Like, and this guy's been lying for about everything he has done. So it's not like it's a shock to anybody that if he were to commit any of these crimes, and you can tell by the voters who voted for him and Republicans that very simply they don't like him. They don't like him at all, and they want him gone. And if I was a Republican and I was in office, I would want him gone too. Just because he makes the party look bad and he makes the voters look bad for voting for him. So, Andrew, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so you already know my whole thing about Santos. I think he's pretty funny. Like it's so sad. Like the extent of things that he's lied about. You know, we've gone over a million times. One of the things that I don't think you mentioned in the last show, but we talked about before. He lied about this his disabled veteran. He
Oh
told the
yeah.
veteran that he was gonna like use the money for his dying dog, or I think because he had like a whole fake operation for like for pet care.
We
And
mentioned that
I think
actually
we mentioned that a
way
while
back.
ago, but not.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's like a joke, right? Which I think, I mean, I think it's very emblematic of the state of the Republican Party. A lot of the people that kind of rise to prominence, and you see it because despite how blatantly, like he's a criminal, he's just like a serial liar on so many counts. Like the Republican Party leadership, they still want him around because at the end of the day, he's just a vote for them, right?
Oh,
Like they have a
absolutely.
slim majority, and Kevin McCarthy's already fully supporting him, and you know, so it's a pretty sad state of affairs. Hopefully, I mean, justice gets served because it's pretty obvious this guy's committed so many, just so much fraud. Like it's definitely happened. It's like definitely one of the least honest people to ever do politics, which is really saying a lot, you know.
Yeah, he really broke down the barriers. He really broke the fourth wall in politics here. I
Yeah, he
mean,
did. Like he just exposed the whole thing. That's something that people often said about Trump, right? Like, oh, like he shows like how it's all a scam because he lies so blatantly and he just gets away with
but
it.
it's
But
a different
Santos
because
really brought it
Trump.
to a whole new level, right? Because at
Yeah.
least Trump has like a narrative, right? That he kind of wants
Well,
to.
well, well. Look, Trump became a politician like everybody else. Okay, a lot of people don't. A lot of people in the conservative camp don't like to admit to that he became a politician. But the truth is, He is a politician. I mean, you look at other candidates, like other presidents. I mean, you look at Obama, Joe Biden. I mean, all these guys, George Bush. I mean, they all have done wrong things because this is a landscape of politics. A lot of these politicians that are very powerful have done bad things. They have done things that are against the law, and we see it time and time again. But this guy is specifically different. I wouldn't just compare him to a Trump or anything. I mean, this guy is in his own tier list of lies that cannot be done again. I don't think it can be replicated again from what he has done. There with saying like, "Oh, I know I never did this as president, I never did that," or whatever it is, whatever office you hold. But George Santos is very specific. He lied about like just his college, as you said, with the vets, with the dogs.
How his mother
I
died,
mean, how his mother died. She
his
died in
sexuality,
9/11.
his
And
race.
turned out, no. Yeah, sexuality, race. He's ready, ready. He's not a Jew. He's Jew-ish.
Ish. Jew-ish.
So it's hilarious that, he goes by that and people believed him. I mean, he really wanted a lot of Jewish people to vote for him, so he would say that he's Jewish. And we all know it was wrong because he's actually a Christian.
Yeah. I will say
So,
though, like obviously he's not the same as Trump, but I think he's like the next evolution of that type of guy. 'Cause you know what's the first thing he said when like the news came out about his charges?
what was that?
He tweeted witch hunt, you know?
Yeah, but
Like he
I
plays
mean,
the but it's the same like
he's only doing it because he saw it works for Trump. That's the only
exactly,
reason.
but
People are
exactly
going to be
like
copycats,
okay,
but you can't copy
but
him. Trump is someone that cannot be copied. I
not
think this
saying,
is
but it's
like
the evolution of
very
that
simple.
whole of just the con man thing, I think though. It's like to a whole new level though, because obviously Trump didn't lie about his entire life. I mean, he lied about many aspects of it, sure, but he didn't lie about like his literal identity and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, politicians are going to tell people what they've done, and of course, politicians will lie about certain things in their life.
Well,
But
I think
this guy
I think
is
Trump is
a,
more of a liar than the average politician, but Santos is like
I
a
don't know if I
whole
can
other
agree with
tier.
that.
I think so.
I don't know if I could agree with that one. I can't. I mean, I'm not saying that he didn't lie. Of course he did. I mean, everyone does. It's just when
I
you're a
think yeah,
politician,
yeah, he's
it's like
definitely more of a I think
I
so.
don't know, man. There's a lot of
But I mean,
politicians. I
regardless though,
mean,
I think the point is like
look at
there's a
Hillary.
decent contingency of the Republican base that kind of buys that stuff, you know? Like and
I don't
it
know,
just kind of
man. It's
degrades
just
itself more and more. I mean, thankfully, I think most Republican voters wouldn't vote for Santos again, but I don't know. I mean, if you know, like they voted for like convicted like rapists and stuff like that. Granted, in deep red states, not purple districts, but still, it's like you know there are people in general, not just Republicans, but especially them who will vote just party first and that's it. And even if like and they won't even really get as demotivated to just not vote at all in some cases. It's interesting, you know.
I mean, look. I mean, you want to know something that was very interesting. That was so close, and it's like I guess a good thing for Republicans it didn't happen. Cawthon, remember Cawthon?
Yeah.
He was the guy that almost won.
He
He
won.
almost won.
He was a congressman.
He no, but like after the allegations,
What
he lost the
allegations?
race though.
What was he accused of? He
Remember?
like a bunch of stuff leaked out against him. That's what I remember. Was he accused of
No,
something?
not allegations, but he had incest with his cousin.
Oh yeah.
That
Well,
whole
that whole
thing,
thing was
remember?
because I mean he started because he kind of went rogue on them. Like he was like a MAGA light type dude, but he started to
Mhm.
say like because there was like an interview that went viral where he was like, yeah, all these guys are degenerates. They do all this crazy stuff when they party, and he was talking about elected officials, and then like literally a week or so later, that video comes out, more things come out, and all this craziness. Granted, it was like a little bit of that, and it was also like you know there was like Democrat organizations that were trying to like that were looking for dirt on him too. So that's how it was publicized to make just the whole party look bad. But you know, it was like an organized kind of thing that happened with him. Whereas I think with Santos, it's just his whole life is just crap, you know. Like he sucked up to everyone, and obviously it's still coming out because he just committed so much fraud too
Well,
that
yeah, he has to suck up to people because he needs people to get him out of the mess that he put himself in.
exactly.
I mean, it's very simple. Um,
But I
but this
mean, it
guy,
just says a lot about our current climate that someone like that could even just get elected.
you know what I think? I think that this man needs to be in history books. I think this man needs to be studied, and I'm not even joking. This guy, I love when I see George Santos in the news. I think he's hilarious. I
He's
think
really
it's
funny.
great, but also at the same time, it is upsetting. And like I said, it should be studied by maybe even just high school students, college students, anyone, because it's something that is so drastic over the regular politician that's not normal. It's not normal at
No.
all. So, and like I said, there's other politicians that have allegations against them and all this other stuff, but his just strokes to a different tune that I don't think is ever heard of, and like I said, will never be heard of again. So it'll
I
be
wouldn't say
interesting to
never,
see.
but it depends how
Well,
it
I mean,
goes.
well, okay, I guess never say never then, right?
Listen, I mean, I guess it's unlikely that no, because I mean, there's like a pretty there's like a maybe like a 20% chance this dude gets reelected.
I don't think he gets reelected.
I don't think
You
so,
think
but there's
there's a
still like a
chance?
20% or so chance. Yeah, it's not high, but it's better than none. If he
No, this guy's
if he
not getting
skirts his
elected.
allegations, if he wins his
That
primary, then I mean,
if, if he
it's off
wins
to the
his
races at that point.
primary and he goes into the general, the Democrat has to be so bad that it's like this guy has to be everything they say in the news. He's got to be like the worst guy on the planet in order for George Santos to win. Because George Santos is not winning. They will turn blue off of George Santos, of course, but I don't think he
I mean,
wins
no,
the
I agree.
primary.
It's much more likely, but it's not impossible.
I don't think he wins the primary.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't
he
see it.
might actually get like, usually like all this fraud and stuff, like it's kind of embraced in politics, but Santos I think just goes too far that they have to convict him. Like it's pretty likely that he'll actually get some kind of his max sentence I think is 20 years. I don't think you mentioned or you did. Yeah.
I did, I did,
You
I
did.
did. I absolutely. Not
Yeah,
only do I
his
mention it,
max potential sentence is
hmm
20 years in jail.
yeah. Not
He
only do I
might not
mention
get
it,
jail time,
this
but it's
guy,
possible. It's more possible than pretty much anyone else like in
this
politics.
guy is not a big politician. He's only big because of the things that are controversial to him, like this. But it's not like he. I don't think he has as much pull to get out of a situation like this. So that's something to really think about here.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that pull. Maybe he does, and I don't know. But from the looks of it, he's a small time guy who made it big because he lied too much. And that's all I'm saying on that matter.
Absolutely. Anyways, let's move on to the next topic now. And moving on to Elon Musk, who, as you all have probably know, he's been CEO of Twitter for about 6 months, I want to say. And since then, I mean, Twitter really has gotten in a much worse spot, which is really crazy because I think it kind of felt like, honestly, I say this a lot. It reminds me of when Trump won in 2016, where it's like, you don't really want it to happen, and then it did happen, and then you're like, okay, well maybe it won't be this bad. Maybe like he'll do one or two things and they might work out, like he said, oh, I want to make like the platform more open, I want to tackle bots. Maybe the free speech stuff will pan out decently when really, I mean, it's been a disaster. He's laid off like so much of the Twitter staff that it literally affects how the website runs. Like you can feel it in a lot of cases. The the speech decisions, I mean, they really skew towards the right. He really platform boosts a lot of far right accounts, bans or deplatforms accounts that are considered left wing extremism in some cases, or accounts that just personally he has a problem with of some kind, like the account that tracked like where his plane goes and things of that nature. And in general, it's just like the system's been working, the system's working worse. Advertisers are leaving, so financially it's in a much worse spot as well. And in December of 2022, he actually, and I can actually pull this up now because this is a new thing we're doing. Oh, no. He released a poll basically asking if he should step down as Twitter CEO, and you can see a pretty decent majority, considering how popular Elon Musk used to be about like 5 or so years ago, to get like 60% to want you to basically like resign. It really says a lot. Of course, when it came out, he blamed bots, which is ironic because when he was buying Twitter, one of the things he said, he was like, I'm gonna purge the bots, which of course didn't happen. You probably know there's more bots on the platform now, if anything, and I kind of spoiled it. But we do have the tweet that came out today, which is that he is finally resigning. He said, excited to announce I've hired a new CEO for X/Twitter. She will be starting in 6 weeks. My role will transition to being exec chair and CTO, overseeing product software and sysops. I don't know why I messed up that one.
IOPS.
Psyops. That's what I read it as too, to be honest. But yeah, so new CEO. It's a woman, which is kind of surprising when you consider the memes. There was like a viral picture going around where it's like Twitter before Elon Musk. It was like a pretty decent mix of men and women, and then after it was like a much smaller group, and they were like all like men. So hey, I mean, female CEO. I guess that's good if you care about diversity. But right before we started recording, they actually announced who this woman was going to be.
Actually, no, they didn't. We
Or
thought
they
they
didn't
did.
announce it. Did they not?
But it's been no, actually, it's actually I know I hate to confuse you on your own bit here, but they had two names, okay? So the first name was actually brought to the attention of I don't know what website said it, but it was Linda Yasarino. Or I think that's how you say the
Yeah.
name. That was being pictured as the name, and then Business Insider came out and said, "Okay, well, the people within Twitter believe that the actual new CEO is going to be the Twitter's trust and safety lead, Ella Irwin." So we don't actually have a name. We thought we had a name, okay, because reports were coming out and we don't have anything yet, but it's still very big news. Um, it'll be interesting to see what they do with this platform. I feel like there's a lot that they can actually do with this platform. I think you do too, especially with them just getting Tucker Carlson without signing a deal. Like media platform wise, it's going to be very
It'll
interesting.
be interesting too to see how because he's definitely embraced like the free speech framing from the right in particular. Like getting and also Matt Walsh wants to put his show on Twitter. I think he's been doing that because he got taken off YouTube, which is another far right content creator. And it'll be interesting because given like their backgrounds, because I was reading up on the first woman, because that's obviously who I assumed it was going to be. I didn't know there was two names floating around, but she seems to become more just from like the normal business world, not inherently like super political. But that kind of goes both ways too. But what that would mean normally is that she would probably want to skew the platform back to kind of like being like a center like liberal kind of platform where she can get advertisers back. Like would that be a priority? That's kind of what I wonder, like how that's going to play out. And also what they would do to the verification system if they would keep that in place or try to revert it back or add to it or whatever.
I mean, yeah, that's all going to be interesting. Um, but it's funny when we mention like or what you mentioned is like oh well, right wingers. It's mostly for right wingers, and now I mean I see them everywhere on my feed all the time. But I will say though is that there's still one right winger. You know who I'm going to bring up that Elon Musk still never brought back, and that's Alex Jones. As a matter of fact, even Nick Fuentes is not even on
I
Twitter.
think
I
he
don't think.
was. I
I don't
think he
think he
got
was
banned
brought back.
again. I think he got
He
banned
got
again.
banned again. So, we know that free speech could go a certain distance on any platform. And that does include Twitter. Um, so it's not just left people being banned, but it's also people on like I guess the far right, you would say, that are
Well,
also
that's what I
not
said too.
on
Like
the platform.
at least with Alex Jones, like he kept Alex Jones off the platform for a personal issue he had with him.
Really?
Yeah, it was literally just over the fact that he has the conspiracy about Sandy Hook. His reasoning was he lied about kids dying, and I don't like I forget the exact language, but basically it was like you don't joke about like kids dying or lie about kids dying.
Yeah, I
Like it's like
remember
a
him
very
saying something
personal
like that.
reason. It's
But
not like
still,
he has a principled stance against like conspiracism or like extreme.
no, I know, I understand that, but still, he won't let him on the platform. So I'm still gonna count it.
I mean,
Um,
it's different
listen,
than
that's
just
all I'm
being told
saying.
like oh like this lefty is too extreme or whatever.
I mean, there are some people that are not going to be able to be on the platform. Um, but we've seen that there's some people go scrolling through Twitter that do not deserve a Twitter account, do not deserve a social media
It's
account.
true.
And that's not left or right. That there's actually a lot of things that, we could see recently. I mean, look at we had Shoe on Head. We were watching through Twitter, was scrolling through, and she had a whole thread on these people who are attracted to children, and it's disgusting. And there's a lot of them on there, and they actually went after her for it. But what they don't know, what they didn't realize, is that she's always on the internet, and she will dig and dig and dig. And so she came after this person really hard with a lot of facts. And when you see that, I mean, she took down Balenciaga's ads basically single-handedly. I mean, she's when it comes to this department, she is not to be messed with, and for good reason too. So there are certain people, like I said, that do not deserve a Twitter account at all, but they are still on Twitter, or they create a new account or whatnot. And yes, I've seen a lot of bots all over the place. I thought the bots were slowing down ever since Elon Musk took place, but apparently it's
No,
not
they were
because I still see
they're
I
everywhere.
still see bots everywhere,
Like I
and it's
noticed more that more than
unfortunate.
ever too. When you type in certain keywords, like you'll get like 20 bot replies. It's so bad.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think it's too. I
it's
mean,
kind
like
of
he laid
crazy.
off like everyone that worked there when he came in too. So there's just not people there to support the platform. Like the
Oh,
value of Twitter went
absolutely.
down a lot because when he bought them and the things that got implemented.
And you know what? I thought that it was a pretty decent idea for him to buy it. I was like, you know what? Maybe he does something with the platform that we need. You know.
Well, that's why like
Um,
that's why I compare it to like Trump being president in 2016 because it's like there he kind of comes in, he wants to like take over and be the leader, and you have like people who are really adamant and really love his personality and think he's gonna own the libs or whatever, and then the liberals who are like shitting their pants over it. And you're like, and then there's people who are like, oh, maybe this will be a different, like, this will be like a change of pace, something better and new. But then he comes in and he just makes it like way worse.
yeah. I definitely think though that he has some good ideas. I just don't think that they're implemented in the right place. It's really idea versus
The
execution
one
type of
thing I
thing
can
from
give
Elon Musk.
him is the community
Hmm.
notes. I like that.
Well, I didn't think I was like the fact checkers, but the community notes really come in clutch.
In general,
Because
I do
there's
like
a
having like
lot.
I think in general I like having fact checks, and I like how these are like actually like anyone can add them, and you can like as long as you have like a valid source for it. Like they're not perfect, of course, but I think it's cool, and it also allows it so that things that might slip through the cracks from like an official fact checker will actually like have context added.
Oh yeah. And I definitely think that that's a good idea. And at first, listen, I was not the fact check guy on like any platform, but I think the community notes are really proving how fact checking can be done because it's just with almost anything. And it's really good to see because you see a lot of fake stuff on there. And there's people that are not memeing. They're not joking. You know what I mean? So when you see something like that, you just want to say, "Hey, is this true or not?" And then you just scroll down and you read the notes. There was one person that she said something along the lines, and I sent it to you like about a day or two ago. She was like, "Oh, there's twice as amount of people on the border as there, or something like that. Twice the amount of people on the IRS
Yeah.
than on the border patrol." And then the community notes comes up and says, "Well, actually, there's like 21,000 people on border patrol.
She
There's
said
actually
like
7,000.
400,000, like some outlandish number, and it was
There's
like
some outlandish number."
a very marginal
She got
comparison.
caught,
There's also
and
a
it's
lot of
funny.
videos that'll get posted. Like videos that are like from like a year ago where they're posted out of context, and it's like this is what's happening right now, and it's like, well, no.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a fun time though, and I'm curious to see where Twitter goes in the future. But it definitely can go further than where it is right now, or where it was before. It really can. It's just they're gonna have to make those steps. They're gonna have to turn those ideas into really good executions for this to work. And well, I guess the only thing I can say is we'll see what happens, like everything else.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's all we have really to say on that.
Yeah. In other news, we have Vice is to be bought out by George Soros. So we talked about Vice before, about a week or two ago. And in 2017, as I said before, they were valued at $5.7 billion. Disney was putting stocks into them. Disney wanted to buy them outright for maybe I think it was like $4 billion the last time we did this podcast, right? Maybe like 2 weeks ago on that episode. Well, guess what? They're being bought for $400 million. Wow. That's actually pretty depressing. So, in that is a ridiculous decrease in the price of what Disney was willing to buy them for. In February, CEO Nancy Dubuque announced that she was leaving almost 5 years with the company. Bruce Dixon and Josefa, I'm not going to say the last name. I don't want to. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to botch it. As co-CEOs, okay. Under the proposed sale, Fortress plans to find a role for Vice co-founder Shane Smith, who is an executive chairman and previously served as the CEO prior to Nancy being hired. The bankruptcy and sale would wipe out most of Vice's shareholders. And they have been unable to pay many of their vendors, and they recently secured a $30 million lifeline loan from Fortress. So Fortress and George Soros are coming together and buying the company out. Um, it is sad because they sometimes have good content, okay, and when they started making content and all that nonsense, that's when really everything started to fall. I mean, they want to appeal to younger people, but they just completely flopped on it. They failed, and it's very unfortunate. Like I said, I'm a fan of Dark Side of the Ring, and I've seen some of their other documentaries. They know how to do a good job when they really put their work in. And and yeah, I mean, Andrew, what would you have to say about this advice going on there? $400 million from $5.7 billion. That's crazy.
It's yeah, I mean, talk about like the media, like legacy media crashing. Vice isn't really legacy, but they've been around for a minute, and they're definitely more mainstream than some of the newer outlets. But yeah, I mean, it's in general though, I guess like journalism, media is just not really doing too hot right now. See what's going on with Fox, like they lost Tucker, and their views are really down low. CNN, their ratings are consistently awful, and they do stuff like we're about to talk about in a minute.
Oh yeah, that
um,
brought him up.
so I mean, but yeah, like it's just not a great spot. BuzzFeed just went under, and they're kind of in a similar lane as Vice, like kind of like a college kid hipster kind of news outlet.
Yeah, I would want to compare them to BuzzFeed, but I get what you mean.
They're like similar. Like BuzzFeed's
I
definitely a
know.
lot more like cringe, like I'll say it, but
Yeah, a lot of very cringe.
at least just like what they got known for. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, and it's just like a rough time right now. I do feel bad for the actual journalists that work there, and people are gonna probably got laid off too.
Of course.
It's definitely tough, and there just isn't a lot of opportunities. Like I've seen more in tech too, to be fair, but I've seen people like who've gotten laid off because of just the economy right now, and it's hard finding work. So definitely hope that those guys who got laid off or lost their jobs can find work. And I mean, if Vice kind of gets if Vice can like stay idle in the background and become like kind of a big thing again, maybe that'll be good, or maybe not. I mean, well, that really is to be seen. So,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. But speaking of the media, like we said with CNN,
Ooh,
they're not doing
the
too
fun
hot,
topic.
so they had to bring out the big guns, which is Mr. Trump,
The Trump.
the Trumpster. I don't. It'll be interesting. It's kind of interesting to see like how they agree to this, because obviously, CNN is seen as like the fake news network. So they, in recent time, in the past year or so, they've got bought out by Warner Bros. Discovery, or so they did that whole merger. They've been trying to make their content appease more to like the center. They don't want to be seen as like a left-wing outlet anymore. Um, So for the most part, they've been hiring more conservative guests. They let go of Don Lemon recently, and they've let go of other hosts as they've had as well, notably Chris Cuomo, for example. So they're definitely shifting. And I think the latest example of that is not only the fact they did the town hall, but some of the ways in which they went about it. So what I mean by that is when they had, they invited New Hampshire voters, they invited basically only Republican voters, and the framing of a lot of the questions. I mean, the questions themselves were fine, but the host really didn't have any control over that debate. Like Trump kind of steamrolled her, and we do have some clips to show, like to demonstrate that. I definitely want to start with the clip from when they were talking about the misconduct case that that got decided basically like the day before or the day or two before that this town hall happened. So just take a look at how not only how like Trump was being questioned, how he responded, and how he kind of had how the room was on his side.
Usually you leave office, you say, I'm sorry, but I'm going to back home. I'm back home to my family and everything. I'm going to be resigning. My poll numbers went up, and they went up with the other fake charge, too. Because what's happening is they're doing this for election interference. This woman, I don't know her. I never met her. I have no idea who she is. I had a picture taken years ago with her and her husband, nice guy, John Johnson. He was a newscaster, very nice man. She called him an ape. Happens to be African American. Called him an ape. The judge wouldn't allow us to put that in. Her dog or her cat was named Vagina. The judge wouldn't allow it to put that in. All of these things but with her, they can put in anything. Access Hollywood.
This was a jury of 9 people who found you liable of sexual abuse. Do you think that will deter women from voting for you?
No, I don't think so, because I think the whole thing, just so you understand, ready? I never met this woman. I never saw this woman. This woman said, I met her at the front door of Bergdorf Goodman, which I rarely go into other than for a couple of charities. I met her in the front door. She was about 60 years old, and this is like 22, 23 years ago. I met her in the front door of Bergdorf Goodman. I was immediately attracted to her, and she was immediately attracted to me. And we had this great chemistry. We're walking into a crowded department store. We had this great chemistry, and a few minutes later, we end up in a room, a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, right near the cash register. And then she found out there were locks on the door. So she said, I found one that was open. She found one. She learned this at trial. She found one that was open. What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes, you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay? I don't know if she was married then or not. John Johnson, I feel sorry for you, John Johnson.
Mr. President, can I...
Yeah. So, obviously he's going to dismiss it. He's going to, pretend that this didn't happen, and he's still sticking with the line that, he doesn't know his woman or whatever. But definitely what's really interesting is just, like, that literally felt like he felt like a stand-up comedian, just to be frank. I mean, just the way that he kind of was, like, describing the story and the atmosphere and the people just kind of, like, laughing in the background. Like, like they even went to the audience at one point, and, like, they were, like, covering their mouths trying not to laugh. And the host basically is trying to, like, keep him in check or whatever, but she's just doing a really poor job. And you saw this a lot with all the topics pretty much that came up, where she was trying to have a grasp on it, but he would just kind of bulldoze like right over her, and the audience was on his side, and it kind of made him look really good to certain types of people, and it really gave him a platform, which seemed kind of like it's not what CNN would have done, like 5 years ago. So it definitely is really interesting. And I'll bring you into it just so we can talk about, if you have anything to say about that clip.
Oh, it was fucking hilarious. There's no doubt about it. I think that was hilarious. Trump made me laugh throughout the whole town hall. There were certain things, like obviously when we talk about policy, it was like, okay, whatever. Like, he would repeat certain things and something. I'd be like, all right, I agree with this, disagree with that. But it was hilarious, dude. I could stop laughing at that clip where he said the dog's name. Like, it was hilarious. It really was. The crowd made it even better for me, the viewer. It was great. I really thought that CNN. I thought it was interesting that they brought him on, but they really need him for ratings. And you said they wouldn't do this 5 years ago, but I think when he was running for president, they did have him on a town hall, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but I think the situation is very different now.
I don't think so.
I think
I think that
I
both
think
of
that
the
if if CNN kind of stayed the way it was,
Mhm.
and January 6th and all that shit happened, and he was running for a re-election, I think they would do the whole we can't platform this guy thing.
Could be around
I
that.
think so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it could be. But 5 years ago, he was running.
He was, and I mean, and
Well,
there were networks that platformed him that you wouldn't think would back then too, but
well, not
it
5 years ago. Maybe like
was a contentious thing.
6, 7, 8. I don't know. 7 years ago. 7 years ago. It was wow. Stop. Oh my God. I'm thinking about how long ago it was. 2016 was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That's just like I'm just thinking about. I'm like, wow. That's really unfortunate for us. We're getting old. But I think that they had him on in 2016, okay, and they have him on here because at the end of the day, he is the most popular guy in the Republican Party, both in 2016 and in 2023. So of course you're gonna have him on the show. Your ratings are going down. You want to be more of a centrist type show, and I understand that. So of course you're gonna want to allow him on, and him talk about you know the oil, energy independence. He went on. He talked about Russia and Ukraine. They asked some questions on that. I'm not sure what clips you have, if you have any more clips from the Trump town hall, but he also mentioned like
I have
inflation, border
immigration and
crisis.
Jan 6.
Okay, so and Gen 6 was a big one because she tried to hammer that in, like, okay, like this is what happened and whatever. And he's saying his side of the story, but like you said, she couldn't hold control to him. But it's really a question of who can control Trump. It's very hard because this guy will bulldoze through everybody. You've seen the debates. We've seen all the Republican debates. He bulldozes through everybody all the time. But that's what makes him so popular. That's also what makes him so likable. So for him to do that on a big stage like
So likable is
CNN,
debatable.
also, well, it got him in for the first term at least. So,
That's it.
okay. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, look, after this town hall, I mean, you got people that are liberals that watched it because it was on Fox News. I'm telling you, no one on the Democratic side probably would have tuned in as much as if it was on CNN. So CNN brought in right-wing viewers, it brought in left-wing viewers, it brought moderates, it brought everyone all together to watch Trump on the stage, and he had a great performance. I think from a performance view, he had a great performance. There were some things that I thought that I disagreed with. Like he thinks that we should default on our debt with the United States. Um, I totally disagree with that. I think that that's the wrong thing to do. Um, he was talking about that. He was also talking about the border crisis, how he said he built the wall. And it's like, obviously the wall's not built because people are still coming in here, like
And we
through the
could play
border,
that one.
through that. Yeah, all right. You have that on right now?
Yeah.
We can play that one. All right, perfect.
Some of your Republican rivals have criticized you for not fulfilling the promises that you made on the campaign trail, like finishing the border wall. So how did voters know that you would get those done if you're reelected?
I did finish the wall. I built a wall. I built hundreds of miles of wall, and I finished it. And then I said, we have to build some more because there are areas like water going through a dam. There are some areas where a lot of people are coming. You close up one, and they come into another. And we started another 100 miles of wall. In fact, I said to my people, if we start this and don't finish it, and then we had a rigged election, I'm sorry to say it.
The election was not rigged, Mr. President. You can't keep saying that all night long.
And
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there it is. I mean, he, like I said, he always talked about, the election was a big premise, I think, or a big theme, overarching theme of like his whole town hall appearance. But you saw it there with the border. I mean, I'm a guy that says, okay, I think the wall should be up, and then this guy's telling me that it's up, but clearly it's not, because if you watch, if you want to watch Fox or Newsmax or anything like that, everyone's gonna say, well, Biden's landed him in because he didn't build the wall. He didn't finish it. It's like, well, if it was finished, no one would be coming in that way, right? Or, I mean, obviously there's layers to this, like security, this, that, and the other thing. But, it was kind of jarring for him to say that. I don't think that was the right call because I think people know that's not true. Unfortunately, people who already like him or love him are going to agree with him regardless. But as someone like me, I'm going to look at him and be like, okay, so what did you do? All right. I'm not going to just, play on sides here and be like, okay, I'm going to agree with everything you're saying because I obviously don't. And I think everyone should be like that with all politicians. I think that's how you really stick it to them, is like saying, okay, listen, you didn't actually do this job. So he did not finish the wall. Okay. Um, as we saw earlier, he talked about the Carroll case. Um, and I don't think I'm leaving out anything. I know the Russia Ukraine thing they asked him on, and then he said he would finish that in like 24 hours. And she asked him, she goes, "Oh, well, do you consider Vladimir Putin a war criminal?" And he goes, "Well," and basically he said he couldn't answer it because if he did answer it, it'd be harder for the relations between the United States and Russia to get along if he were to say that if he became president. I thought that was a smart move. I think he has some smart answers. I got to be honest with you. I thought his answer was smart, even with some of them that I didn't agree with, like the fall thing. I really didn't agree with it, but he had such a great answer to it
I don't
where she snapped back at him and
I
she
don't think
goes,
it's a
"Oh,
great
well,
answer.
why'd you?" Well, because the crowd reaction came in, it like totally like waved off everything. So it was the crowd reaction and what he said to it. Like I said, I don't agree with it, but again, it made him look good. Okay, that crowd did make him that crowd made him look better than what he was supposed to be. Um,
Well, it depends too on like
yeah.
who's watching it, right? Because
Well,
if
of
you're,
course, it depends.
you know, so I mean, just because they're cheering or booing doesn't necessarily make it. If you can kind of parse the what he's saying, you know.
I mean, true, but again,
Because I
it's
mean,
if
his
you can get
response was
past that.
like, because she was like, "Oh, you used to not be for this. Why are you for, like, for doing like a default on the debt?" And she's like, "Well, I wasn't president then." And she's like, "Why
Yeah.
don't you want to do it now?" I was like, "Because I'm not president." So it's very partisan, and I feel like most independent voters would hear that and they'd think like, they obviously I think they'd come from where you're going from. I don't think they're gonna really care about the crowd reaction, right? If they care about the debt, which a lot of independents probably would, I'd imagine.
I think that not so much it was maybe I go back on like saying it was a great answer. I don't think it was a great answer. I think it was great that he made it a comedic answer is what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah.
That's what I really wanted to say. Okay, I just want to fix that statement real quick because I really thought about it and I was like, all right, he made it comedic and that's what really made his time at the town hall great. I assume you have one more clip from Trump or no?
I do. You want to play it?
Yeah, which one is this about?
This is about January 6th.
Okay, play it.
Do you have any regrets about your actions on January 6th?
Well, January 6th was, again, we go back to it, but January 6th had to do with the fact that hundreds of thousands of people, and you don't see the pictures very often. A lot of the people here probably were there. January 6th, it was the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. That was prior to the walk down to the Capitol building. I don't think, and I've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people. I've never spoken to a crowd as large as this. And that was because they thought the election was rigged. And they were there proud. They were there with love in their heart. That was an unbelievable, and it was a beautiful day.
A beautiful day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are some things where I'm like, all right, yikes, like you should know, like, all right, that's a bit of a yikes here. Like I know he's trying to also please his crowd, but at the same time, I mean, it's hard
That's
because
all
it's
he
such a
does now.
bold, yeah, well, it's a bold statement he made in the first place, and if he were to back down from that, he would seem weak. So, I kind of understand why he did that. Um, and I mean, obviously, that January 6th was. I mean, we had debates about it. We talk about it. I mean, it was a terrible day, right? People were killed. All right, um, and there was just a lot of things that happened that should have never happened that day. But people were fed up because they felt that the election was stolen. Which, he said that people were there because they thought the election was stolen. Funny word on I don't know if he said that on purpose or not, but he didn't say because they knew that there was election fraud in it, which was funny coming from him. I mean, maybe I was just thinking a little too much into it, but I thought it was funny. Um, and uh, and yeah, I mean, and you saw the footage before with that I showed you with Byron Donalds,
Oh, yes. So we're gonna get
right?
into some of the reactions now. So Brian
Yes.
Donalds, who's a Republican representative from Florida, basically was on the panel with CNN, and he gave his take on it, and it kind of offset because he's like a Trump supporter, and the rest of them are like, either liberal or they're conservatives against Trump. So that's kind of the dynamic at play here, is that they're kind of they don't really, they obviously didn't like the town hall. They had problems with it, and he's going to defend it. That's what's going on
Town
here.
halls are for the voters, not for the press, not for the person who's the moderator. Caitlin spent more time interjecting her own viewpoints or her own views on the situation.
Excuse me, those are actually facts now.
Now, are you guys not going to interject your views on me, or do I get a chance to speak now?
If you're speaking falsely, those were facts.
The town hall is for the president to speak to the voters of New Hampshire, not for this back and forth with media. That's number one. Hold on. That's number one. Number two, with respect to Ukraine, I totally disagree. He did not say he was just going to give over Ukraine the way you intimate, Van. He did not say that.
He didn't say
what he said.
He did not say that he would stand for a victory.
What he said is that he would actually look for a solution to end it quickly. He put 24 hours on it, but let's be very clear. What Joe Biden has done has been a disaster, because initially with Ukraine, Joe Biden wanted to give Vladimir Zelensky a ride out of Dodge. He wanted to give him a plane ride, and it wasn't until people in Moscow, in Ukraine, here in the United States said this invasion is wrong that Joe Biden reversed course.
Do you want a victory in Ukraine? Do you want a victory in Ukraine?
I'm just trying to respond to everything that's been coming up on the table. Last thing, let me say this. We spent 22, 23 minutes talking about January 6th. We could have been talking about a whole lot of other issues instead of doing that for the first half hour or so. But let me be very clear. What was said in this town hall about National Guard troops that were authorized by Caitlin was wrong. I'm on the Oversight Committee. I was in 2 hearings on January 6th. It was testified in Oversight that Donald Trump authorized National Guard troops on January 4. He followed up in a call with then acting Secretary of Defense on January 5, trying to see where the deployment was on those troops. That is testimony in the Oversight Committee. Everybody testified in Oversight Committee when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, except one organization, and that was the Capitol Police.
Did you read the
because
Secretary
Nancy
of Defense's
Pelosi would
book?
not allow that. I'm telling you what was testified to in the Oversight Committee under oath.
Well, let me just correct you, because what Caitlin was saying was what the former Secretary of Defense wrote in his book. He said the president did not.
Can I just
I am
ask
telling
one
you
thing?
what he testified to under oath. In the Oversight Committee.
Congressman, can I just
There
ask,
are the facts. Go ahead.
you do acknowledge Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, correct?
Again, we're going to continue to talk about 2020.
No, I mean, it's a direct
right now, hold on. Let me tell you why most voters are frankly kind of tired of y'all bringing this up. Inflation, border.
You don't have the courage to express your opinion about what
I'm a Republican voter. I'm a Republican voter.
Voters want to talk about inflation, the border, fentanyl.
Yeah, and that kind of goes on. So.
Yeah, it's a few minute clip. I think it goes on for like 10 minutes in total. Look, my view out of this whole thing is I think Byron Donalds is going to be a Republican superstar in the making. I said it to Andrew. I said it about maybe a year ago or so. I mean, this guy really knows how to, like Trump, bulldoze over people who are talking over him. So he doesn't let people cut him off. He gets right to the point, and he makes sure that what he's saying is going to be said. Okay? It's going to be heard by the audience or whoever is there to hear it. So Byron Donalds has some good qualities of being a good politician in the sense of getting his voice out there and telling people what he wants to do. I think Republicans are going to seem to love this guy if he doesn't have any, bad track record that just comes along the way. And as a politician, as politicians get older and they make certain decisions, yeah, you're going to have like something where it's like, oh, well, you see, he did this and all that. But if he has like kind of like a clean slate, okay, like he made some like decisions here or there, he could be a future president, depending on the path he chooses. Right now, he's on the right path. And I think that his moment was on that CNN panel because a lot of people didn't know who Byron Donalds is. I'll tell you a funny story. I actually met Byron Donalds at CPAC when I was going around interviewing people. And I wanted to meet him. He's from Brooklyn, New York. So, and he talks like a New Yorker. He walks like a New Yorker. Like, you see this guy walk. It's like this guy is like a total New Yorker. All right. It was very easy to spot out in DC who's from New York or not. And I mean, he just has a presence. And if you're a Republican, I think that you're gonna like this guy.
Yeah, and if you're anyone else, you probably won't. So it's like the same, just like conservative platitudes and talking points, but it's like strapped on like a younger black guy. So
But he's
it's like
yeah.
effective in a way, but at the same time, it's also just like it's nothing really new, right? Like he's just kind of saying the same talking points. But
Well, I mean, but that's when you're with the party, you're gonna say like similar points. Like that's how it's gonna work when you're associated with a political party. I mean, this guy
well, yeah, there
is.
is like there are similar talking points. That's
Mhm.
true, but he's not like he's not like a new generation in any real way. Like there's maybe like the only thing I could think of is that he brought up like nuclear energy. I think I've seen it like in a previous thing. But even there, I mean, it's just like
He's
he dances
somebody.
around like the 2020 question,
He did,
He just
but he did make his voice heard though. He jumped over that very easy. He bulldozed like right through that. Um, so his dodges are unique, like Trump's. But what I was gonna say about
I don't
Byron
think they were
Donalds,
unique
what
though.
I
I think he
think.
just kind of I feel like
Mhm.
most people in his position that were like elected Republicans would have done the same. They
I
would have
think,
just pivoted from like, oh, why are you still talking about this, and started saying like, oh, these are the real
yeah, but
issues.
he makes his presence known. I think that he really does a good job at
He's
that.
I
He
think
does
he's
a
a
good
better
job at
speaker than
speaking up.
average, but I don't think
Well,
he's like that
absolutely, better
exceptional.
speaker, and I think that he could grab a lot of like younger people if need be. Um, I'm not saying he's
I'm
gonna
not
grab all
sure.
of
I
Gen
don't
Z.
know.
I don't think he would grab all of Gen Z, but he falls under the line of like a DeSantis, where DeSantis is gonna pick up younger voters.
Well,
Okay,
younger
more,
Republicans
more,
though.
well, yeah, younger Republicans, but
But
even
all these
still,
guys
like,
have the same problem. They're not expanding their coalition at all. They're
but there's
relying
a
on a dying generation and like a very very
and
small percentage
and that,
of
mhm.
young people.
And that might be true, right? I could agree with you on that. But I think Byron Donalds has the making, like you said, you talked about nuclear energy that he mentioned. And if that's the case, I mean, that's something new to the table. Um, and this guy
But
is
it's not
fairly
something he
young.
pushes. It's something I like heard him say once.
Okay.
And if I mean in the context it was brought up, I think it was just to like kind of as like an alternative to using renewables or instead of
Hmm.
renewables to do that. So to what extent it's even like a net positive because renewables aren't bad obviously. But that's like a whole other debate, right? That we can have. Like there really isn't a party that prefers. It's not really there because the climate change debate in this country is if it's real or not because that's like the type of political discourse we have.
Yes.
And I mean,
Um,
if that I mean that might be a big thing though because a lot of young people like climate change is a big deal to them. So if there's any Republican that acknowledges it existing on like any level at all, that might help them in a way, but to the extent it's going to really make a difference is yet to be seen.
I think you have a point there.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely there's no Republican that comes in like a Andrew Yang type candidate where they bring something like totally new, but like it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Hmm.
think the Republican Party really has something like that. Like what Yang
Well,
brought to
because
the Democratic
definitionally they want to
Party was
conserve
something
stuff,
different.
right? I mean, that's what it is.
Well, of course, but there's some things that I think that they'd be open to adding certain politicians, but we don't know. I mean, look at Matt Gaetz and AOC. They bonded together, unlike, I mean, who knew that they would be shaking hands, but they shook hands and they want to pass a bill banning politicians from participating in stocks. So there are certain politicians, I think that even on the conservative realm, who yeah, they want to conserve. That's the whole thing. It's conserving, old traditions. But I think there's certain laws in place that they would like to change to make for the better. I mean, there's a good chance that there's some
I think it's
politicians
a
that think
very
this
much
way.
on the. It's like
It could be
very rare
niche,
though.
like it could be like a very
I don't
small
think
group of
the
them.
I don't think the stock trade thing is niche, but it's just rare because the only reason really it became so prominent is because of the association with Pelosi. It
Well,
became
that's
so
true
strong.
too. And AOC battles with Pelosi, so also Matt Gaetz will. So I mean, I guess there you go.
Well, AOC is also just more progressive than he is. Like she actually like doesn't take stocks at all or anything. So and just in general, like the progressive Democrats are against that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think
Mhm.
there's a much quicker limit to the type of corruption that Matt Gaetz would outlaw compared to like AOC. But speaking of AOC, she also had a reaction to the town hall. If you can imagine, it was a bit different than Mr. Byron Donalds.
I can
So
imagine.
we'll let her speak. This clip will be a lot shorter.
I know you said earlier that you will not comment on the platforming of such atrocious disinformation, but I would. I think it was a profoundly irresponsible decision. I don't think that I would be doing my job if I did not say that. And what we saw tonight was a series of extremely irresponsible decisions that put a sexual abuse victim at risk, that put that person at risk in front of a national audience, and I could not have disagreed with it more. It was shameful.
Yeah, so obviously.
Listen, I totally disagree with her. I think that it's okay for him to be on that platform. I mean, he is definitely the front runner, and probably gonna get the nomination from the Republican Party. So if that's the case, I mean, he's gonna be on TV somewhere.
Is there a limit to that?
Of course, there's a limit. There is a limit.
What's the limit then?
Like a Nick Fuentes. You know what I mean? Like there's certain limits.
Besides just being
out there.
like heinous, I mean, I'm also talking about.
But yeah, I mean that's a problem. I mean, you would
no,
want
but I'm
that as
saying
your front runner.
he's a twice convicted criminal technically. You know what I mean? He's been convicted of 2 crimes. I mean, obviously he's not a criminal like in a literal sense because it's innocent until proven guilty or whatever. But I mean, he was convicted. He's in a court battle, but still like.
He's in a court battle, but
does that not influence
again,
the decision? And there's also many other crimes like.
I mean, don't you think that people are gonna make up their mind? You don't think that if they run him again, people are just gonna go racing to the voting ballots? Like that's the idea. That should be their playbook here. Is like, okay, this guy is on stage, and all right, he's on stage. You know that he's out there. You know that he's running for office, but because he's gonna be on the ballot, you think people are gonna be shocked when he's on the ballot? Like, no, people know that he's running for office. They know that he is the primary front runner for the Republican Party. So you're going to know he's there. So put him on CNN. Okay, ask him questions. Ask him questions that, Americans want to know answers from. Okay? And that's why he was there. People know he exists. We can't just say, oh, he doesn't exist because this, and this. He's their guy.
I mean,
you can't.
But he's
stop
also,
that.
but having him physically there allows him to kind of just like basically unchallenged, like say whatever he wants, because that's essentially what wasn't going on, right? And he was like he was lying about, huh?
She challenged him.
Not well, and it's not even really her fault.
Different.
It's not really her fault though. But he can't challenge her well. So what do you do when you can't challenge someone well? You know what I mean? And the thing with him is that he's so far beyond the point of having like an honest conversation about issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not engaging in good faith. Obviously, it's rare for them for that to be the case at all. But it's just so far gone, and especially on the election stuff, like it's just a whole different plane of reality, right? Like the real world court of law, like all these court cases came out, and they said, yeah, there's no real valid proof of election fraud. We even did recounts in certain states. It's like it's a shut in. Yeah, but that's the point, is that she said that, and the crowd booed her essentially. I don't think they literally did, but they don't agree with her. And then Trump said, "Oh, well, actually, it was rigged," and he got like standing ovations for it. So,
I mean, the room was full of Republicans. I mean, I don't know what else you expected here. Okay. I mean, they invited that. Okay, you want to know something? Then they should have brought in Democrats. They should have mixed it up. But they decided to have all Republicans there. So what do you think is going to happen? If you have Republicans and some independents there,
I mean, you can also argue how many Democrats would realistically show up to that. You know what I mean?
Democrats would have showed up to that. Are you kidding me? Absolutely, they would have showed up to that.
They also invited independents, so I think more Democrats would have showed up.
Well, that's why I said that they invited independents.
But obviously they geared it towards Republicans. But my point is that you're not really like the discussions on that they were asking him Like we're just not like it's not even like a debate at that point.
So I want to ask you this.
Like
Then.
I think a debate is better, and even the debate is just not really that good at this point.
Okay, and I can agree with you. The debates. I feel like the debate should be much better. I 100% agree.
But a
But I
debate
want
would
to
have
ask
probably been
you.
better than that because at least you would have had someone actually like directly challenging him instead of just trying to moderate, like just have a discussion.
Okay.
Because a town hall is like a discussion between like, you want to hear your ideas, and the voters give you the ideas. But then you have the guy like doing a town hall. He's just lying about literally everything, which is what happened. And then she's like, doing her job, being like, okay, well, I mean, I know this is your ideas, but your ideas are based in lies, or this is just all a lie. And then the guy's like, well, actually, I'm right. And he's just
But
completely controlling it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, of course he controlled the whole thing. But I have to ask you though, do you believe that CNN was wrong for giving Trump the town hall?
I don't think it added anything like legitimately productive outside of the segment for us,
I'm
our sake.
saying, but I'm saying, do you think that it was wrong for them to do it? Is what I'm asking you.
It was wrong. You
'Cause
could
that's what
argue. You
AOC
could
is
argue
essentially
that.
saying. No, no, no. I'm not asking you, can you argue? I'm like, do you think that it was wrong? Do you think they should never put Trump out there? That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, I
Okay.
think it's pretty obviously just like a ploy for them to get like more ratings and more views and more attention, and it's
Of
working.
course it is. Of course it is.
But
Um,
and that's
mhm.
the thing too, is that when people say like, oh, like he should be on here and it's good that he's on here, like from like a more, I guess, moderate perspective, is they're saying, oh, it's good to, to hash it out and to have these debates, but they don't want to have debates. He doesn't want to have a debate. He
Listen,
just
I
wants the
want him to have
attention.
debate.
He wants to just look, just the attention to get people out there.
Hmm.
Like they're gonna just go steamroll ahead with whatever narrative they have.
That was gonna happen anyway.
Yeah, that's why they should have done it.
I don't know. I listen. I'm okay with him being on the CNN town hall. Like I said, I think him being the front runner, you're gonna know he's there. People are gonna want to know more about him on what's going on, what his thoughts were, and what his thoughts are going right now on the country because no one's really watching his rallies unless you watch Newsmax or Fox News. That's fine,
But yeah,
but
that's the point though, is that they aren't watching him, so it makes him a weaker candidate because he doesn't get the attention.
now he's getting the attention from CNN and
And that's
other
that's a
people
that's
like
like a bad thing. That's
independents.
why they think it's a bad thing, because they don't want him to have the attention, because they don't want to
He
improve
was
the chances he have of winning.
he was gonna get it anyway because guess what?
But
He's
no,
gonna
but
be on
no,
the
that's a
no
contradiction
because
though.
guess what? No, because he's gonna be on the debate stage with Joe Biden, presumably, correct? Would
Well,
he not?
most likely, but
Exactly. So he's gonna be on the debate stage, and I would say about what 3 debates he's gonna have at least. So if he's gonna have at least 3 debates, why not just put him on the town hall? He's gonna be on
well,
that
actually, I
platform.
mean, if you want to get really technical with it, he did say he might not do the debates because they're too rigged in favor of Democrats.
I don't know. I think he's gonna do it. I
But
think he's gonna do it.
to actually engage with what you're saying is that, obviously there are precautions that are put in place already, right?
Hmm.
And I think Biden would debate Trump, probably, I would assume.
Yeah,
I don't think he would not debate Trump or on his team,
he did it
especially because
before.
the optics of it would look bad because he's old and all, like he's older than him and
Of
all that
course.
stuff. But for CNN to do like the town hall, like literally, and I actually said before too, like at the start of this, I said that a debate is better than a town hall, like in the context of a candidate like Trump, because a town hall, the host or the moderator is supposed to be neutral. Like what you had there was just like a poor debate because she had to challenge him because what he was saying was so aggressively false.
I
But
think if she
she's
never
not.
challenged him on it, or never,
It
or
would have been
tried,
worse. It
or
would have been
trying to
even
talk
worse.
about it, I don't know. Maybe if she never even talked about it, or
He
yeah,
would
if
have
she
brought it up.
did,
There was instances
he
in
would
the
have brought it up
it
once or
literally.
twice, but I don't think it would have been as much.
It would have been as
Maybe
it would have been. He brings it up all the time, the election stuff,
true, but she
especially in
did
a
go after.
crowd like that. Like he's gonna bring that stuff up, and he's gonna be
She did
like.
go after him though, and
And
I
also,
mean, I
some of
think
the questions too
that's
were, we
fine.
didn't play this one, but some of the questions were by the audience members, and when the audience members asked would he pardon people on January 6th, and he said yeah, he would.
That's true.
So, I mean, yeah, no, the extremism would have come out regardless. and like just the lying and the dishonesty of certain events.
Oh, he's not
At
dishonest. He would
least,
have pardoned them.
huh?
He's telling the truth. He would pardon them.
Well, I mean that's true, but I mean
No,
like the
I know.
context of them and
I
like
know. I know
the
what you mean.
crimes, yeah. But a debate, obviously, like they're still there physically. Like the
Mhm.
platforming almost isn't even really the problem, right? Like by itself. The
Yeah.
problem is just like you're just doing a bad job at like challenging this guy, right? And challenging his ideas. At least with
Mhm.
a debate, inherently that's the point, is to challenge him and to say, "Hey, you're just lying. Your ideas suck," and all this stuff. So that, I mean, that's why I think a debate's fine. I don't know.
Okay. Well, it's one of those cases. I guess we're gonna have to agree to disagree. Before we go around in a circle. But I mean, I understand your point.
I
I
just don't think
understand
like
why
a
you would
town hall
see
literally
that
just
debate.
it just exists to it, because inherently a town hall, the point of it is to give any candidate publicity and to make them look better and to present their ideas.
Now, the next thing we should be saying is that Marianne Williamson should get one, Kennedy should get one, and Vivek
Yeah, I mean, but
and
they won't.
Eric Johnson, all these other guys, they should be getting. Now that's a
If you're gonna
criticism.
exclude
That's
them,
a
you
proper
should
one.
exclude Trump. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think everyone should be involved there. I think that's the only way to do it really um, fairly. Um, but I guess that's all I gotta say. Besides the fact that there was a lot of comedy involved in it, and it left us with a couple of laughs.
Yeah, it's the least you can say. But there is we actually mentioned this guy, Vivek
Yes, we did.
Ramaswamy.
All right.
So back to me. So Vivek Ramaswamy is running for president as a Republican, and he wants to raise the voting age to 25. I'll let the video speak for itself, and then I'll kind of I'll say my piece.
Amendment to raise the age from 18 to 25 years old. But he says there should be some exceptions.
We want to restore civic duty in the mindset of the next generation of Americans. And how we want to do it is to say that if you want to vote as an 18-year-old between the ages of 18 and 25, you need to either do your civic duty through service to the country, that's 6 months of service in either military service or in a first responder, including police, fire, or otherwise. Or else you have to pass the same civics test that an immigrant has to pass in order to become a naturalized citizen who can vote in this country. At age 25, that falls away. So in a nutshell, what we're proposing is a constitutional amendment to raise the voting age to 25.
Kaylee, apparently, according to Politico, he'd been mulling this over for a while. He got a really positive reception to suggesting it from a lot in the immigrant community who actually came up to him. And apparently that, quote, sealed the deal, according to
All right, so yeah, he wants to basically require a civics test if you're 18 to 24. Full disclosure, I'm 24. I just turned 24 about a week ago. Chris is gonna turn 24 in a couple months, so we wouldn't even be 25.
Hey, slow it down, slow it down, slow it down, please. You're making me feel old. Just because you're old doesn't mean I'm old, okay? You got that?
But yeah, so obviously we wouldn't be old enough to vote. I think I have enough faith in me and Chris that we would probably pass the civics test, just how
I was gonna say, you know you're gonna fail that?
in tune we would be. We are into news. But I don't know. I think the idea, and really this says so much, I think, about the state of the Republican Party. They, like we were talking about before with Brian Donalds, like they have a problem with young voters. It's very, very clear, and like they lost the last three elections mostly because young people are voting more, and they overwhelmingly vote for Democrats because they're just more progressive or left wing or whatever you want to say. So now you see increased calls to say, hey, the voting age should be higher because we don't want Gen Z to be voting so quickly. And definitely, even just the language of, oh, you have to pass a civics test and do this, it kind of screams like, we want you to be good little Americans. You can't, like, question our country and have to think a certain way. It's very, I don't know, to me, it's very, like, dystopian in a way. It's like, you want them to be less critical of your country in order to vote for them. You have to understand, like, we're the greatest country in the world, and this is why. It's just not, to me, it's just not a good look. I don't even think most Republicans agree with this. I think this is like a new project for the right to try to convince people that, oh, actually, 18 isn't even a good age for this. But also, you can buy a gun at like 16. So, just another like inconsistency that you kind of see from certain people. But yeah, what do you make of that?
Well, it's the same thing as like, oh, you can join the military, but you can't drink a beer until you're 21.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me, except this is like, you just increase the age a little bit higher here.
And also, too, that's almost 10
mhm.
years older than 16, which is like the age you can drive, the age you can work, the age you don't have to be in school anymore. So
You could
it's
be on the road driving, but you can't vote for who
you
you
could
want
theoretically
to set
be
laws.
like a trucker in some places, right? Like in some parts of this country.
Better be a trucker and you came and fight for your own like not that like these politicians are really doing anything, but like if to say that someone did come up, you just couldn't do anything about it because, you're not 25 or you didn't pass the test. Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of these people actually that are truck drivers, don't forget, a lot of these people just have high school diplomas, if that.
Also,
This
the idea of passing like a civics test or a literary test, as it once was, it's what they used to prevent black people from being able to vote too. Like they would have these tests, they'd make it like ridiculous, and yeah, I mean, the black people, poor people. So it's really crazy. Vivek is pretty known, like he's very far right on a lot of the social issues and stuff, and he will own like the fringe positions on pretty much all of these mainstream issues. It's pretty clear. I don't think he thinks he's gonna win. So I think he's just trying to like, get his name out there and try to like build like a platform of some kind. I don't know what that is. Maybe he wants to be in the Trump administration. Maybe he wants like a show or something. He has one, but like a popular, like a bigger show. And I mean, yeah, I don't really see this happening. Obviously, I don't think he's gonna be president. And I think any change, first of all, it's like impossible because of the way the Constitution works. And second of all, it would be pretty disastrous, I think.
I mean, we talked about it on the show plenty of times how like what is Ramaswamy's goal, what his end goal is here, and I think it's obvious that he just wants to get a name out. But I will applaud him, like I said, and even for saying something like this, I still applaud him that he gets out there. He makes himself uh, popular. He puts himself in the news. He's there. You know he's there, whether you like him or not. But again, totally disagree on this. You're saying that 18-year-olds can't vote. They don't oh, you know, basically you're not smart enough to vote is basically what you're telling them. So when you say that, why would they vote Republican or for you if you think like this? You're telling them they're dumb. This is kind of like when people make fun of Kamala. Remember Kamala is like, this is why you put college kids in dorms because they're stupid. They don't know what they're doing. It's like the equivalent of that. You're basically calling them that you're telling them that they're dumb, and then you still want them to vote for you. It's like, but you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like that is
That
not
happens a lot
not a
though.
good look
Like,
for
you know,
young people.
like a Democrat will say like, oh, like they'll just have like some stupid comment about some group of people, like some voting group, and like the right will latch onto it and be like, oh, see, like these they don't care about you, this and that, and then they'll just say or use something like 30 times worse for that same group of people. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
Um,
I mean, if you want to like get their vote, all you have to do is just like do things that they like, and support them and fight for them. That's how, coalitions are built in politics. But, both sides kind of lack it, have lacked it for like a while and don't do enough in a lot of ways. But I think they're right. There's just really just no effort to expand their coalition at all, like I said in the last segment. So, I mean, hopefully that changes, but I don't really see it. Like I said, I think that whole party is a complete and utter just restructuring, dismantlation, or whatever. But
that's definitely a part that needs to be restructured because like I said, there's some values that I understand you can bring to the table, but you're not obtaining the young vote. There's a question, as I said many times, I asked at CPAC, what can, politicians do for young voters? And I'm not saying it's an easy one to answer. You just cater to them. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I get that, but like, what policy do you want to put in place in order for that to happen? So, and when you're on like more the conservative side, I guess it's a little bit hard to come up with these new ideas because you're more keen on these old traditions, which some of them can be used for good, and just a lot of them also can be used for the bad, as we've seen time and time again. And raising that age limit to 25 will only make people vote against him. I don't think there's anyone that is under 25 say, "Oh yeah, I think that this is a good idea." And if they are, then I don't know what to say to them. You know what I mean? Like,
they think they'll ace the civics test. That's why.
Because they'll ace the test. Oh, it's so nice. Oh, you ace the test. Look at you. Props. You ace the test. You're so smart. Like, is that what you want? You want a little trophy saying that, oh, I voted? You want your little sticker saying, oh, I'm not 25, I voted? Like, it's just stupid. And again, I believe that the drinking age should be lowered to 18 because college students are going to do it anyway. This is what they do. If you could be in the military, you can drink. And if you could drink and be in the military, you can vote. And if you could drive, you could do all three of those things. Just don't do some of it at the same time, please. So that's really what it comes down
Can't believe
to.
you said 16-year-olds should drink. That's crazy.
No. Well, no, I didn't say 16-year-olds can drink. I said 18-year-olds.
You say you're old enough to drive.
I meant to say is if you're old enough to drive, you're old enough to, well, yeah, actually, I did say that. But anyway, point still proven, okay? You know what I mean, all right? Listen, recording this, it is late at night, I must say. So listen, the brain sometimes, I have my Biden moments. I have Biden gaffes. Don't we all have it? I think we all have that.
Yeah,
so
sometimes.
the thing. At the end of the day, it's a terrible decision. I don't know any youngster that's going to be for it, except for the, I guess the scenario that we made up. And hopefully that doesn't happen, which most likely it won't. So I'm not too afraid about that.
I think move on.
So here we are. What are we talking about now? AI. Can't say we didn't see it coming, because we really did. IBM plans to replace 7,800 jobs with AI. The IBM Chief Executive Officer, Krishna, I don't know how to say the first name, so I'm not going to botch that one, has revealed plans to pause hiring for about 7,800 positions that could be replaced by artificial intelligence systems over time. In March, Goldman Sachs released a report estimating that generative AI may expose 300 million jobs to automation, which means those roles might be reduced or replaced by AI systems. Again, we talk about this, and we talk about this because it's a serious issue. It's an issue that should be talked about. It should be mainstream, but it's really not until it really starts to affect a famous politician. That's how it is, and that's how it's going to go, unfortunately. But we on this show are going to always talk about AI and how much of a problem it could be and how there should be regulations to AI. We talked about how AI can be good for certain things as a tool to use when you're editing, when you're, doing certain things. But to take over a job or jobs or millions or thousands or how many jobs it's going to take, that's when it becomes a problem. So you could go to school, spend your $60,000, spend your $100,000. Go ahead, dorm $100,000 a year, a semester, or whatnot. You come out and you have to pay so much money in loans, thousands of dollars, just so you can get replaced by a machine, by an AI, by a robot. This is what we're dealing with here. This is really serious. Everyone should be attuned to this. Everyone should listen. Because if you don't, bad things are going to happen. There's got to be a push for regulation. There's got to be a push for it. Otherwise, we're going to live in a world where it's just iRobot. And you really don't want to do that. And in all seriousness, look at what happened with the NYPD. They have robot dogs. They have other robots patrolling the streets. This is the future. If you like robots, that's cool. But when robots are taking other people's jobs and will plan to take more jobs, that's going to be a problem for not only Americans, and it's an American issue, of course, but for all around the world. So if it happens all around the world, what makes you think it's not going to happen here? Of course it's going to happen here. You know how I know that? Because it already started. Andrew, I think I know what you're about to say about this. But take it away.
Yeah, I mean, talk about Yang was right. He ran in 2019, 2020 about on like this whole AI thing, and talked about how serious it was, and we're starting to see it, right? And
We've seen the repercussions. Yep.
It's in a much bigger way than people really could have imagined, right? And I mean, COVID probably sped it up. Just working from home, people are like, oh, the breakthroughs in the past, like year or so when it comes to AI technologies. So these jobs, are these like programming jobs, basically?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like that makes sense. Like simple
That's
programming
what
is
it seems
probably
like.
really
Yeah.
easy to just automate, right?
Man, it's just like if you're going for these type of jobs, and these are the things that you go, oh, I'm gonna make 100K a year. Oh, and then I have a nice 401K, and I have all this and that. No, you don't. You're not gonna have
But I
that.
will say too, it's tough to regulate. Like, how do you regulate that though? But
It's
you just ban it. You just ban AI
no, well,
workers.
yeah, basically, like you ban AI workers.
But
If
then,
AI is
but
gonna,
then how
okay, look,
capitalist are we really then at that point? You know?
if that's what we care about, then we're doomed. There's
I
gotta be
agree,
some
but
sort.
then, but that's the.
There's gotta be
I'm just thinking
okay.
about it from how the U.S. government and how the corporations, because corporations have immense, measurable influence on the government.
Well, here's
So
the
there's
thing.
gonna
We
just come a
know.
point where the corporations and the companies are gonna want like, hey, like don't regulate this.
We know that the companies really own the government at this point, and it's really sad. But you've seen that they get their taxes cut, and still they give their jobs, American jobs, or what should be American jobs, they put them overseas. So what's the difference here? Are they going to regulate it? Well, they didn't regulate overseas jobs. So are they going to regulate this? Probably not. And that's a problem. We need a politician, you know, to stand up and say, look, this is a problem. And besides Andrew Yang, because Andrew Yang's already doing his own thing. We need someone else that's going to come out of the woodworks and just say, okay, we need to put an end to this. We need to regulate this before jobs get lost. There's a reason why Elon Musk and I think it was Bill Gates, they turned away and said, okay, we got to just like pause on working on AI for the next 6 months because it's going to get bad. But when those 6 months are over, do you think that they resume? And if they do, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah. Well, I can tell you this, it's not going to be good.
Well,
if this is only
you could
6
look at those.
months,
because
yeah, there
either
is.
they could research it more and see how like the impact this will have on like the world and the jobs market and things like that nature. And there's like the more cynical angle where it's like, I mean, these specific people, very influential, wealthy people, want to pause it so that they can catch up and own
of course
it. So
it could very much be
a tough
that
thing.
And that's why I say that no matter what after it, it's still going to be a problem. And it's going to be a problem that is going to affect everyone. I mean, it starts small. Look at the kiosks that you see when you go to McDonald's, when you go to Taco Bell. You put your thing on the screen, boop, 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 and you put in like, oh yeah, I want my tacos
well, it's not even
deluxe.
AI, that's just a computer.
But still, it's taking jobs.
Well, yeah.
It's the start of it. And then it progresses. Now you go into some CVS's and there's like one cashier. It's like, why is there one? Oh, because we have a self checkout right over there. There's like 2 or 3 of them. Now those are jobs gone. So now not only are they paying minimum wage, they're overworking any workers that they have there. They're not hiring anymore. And then they cry and they say, "Oh, well, no one wants to work anymore because you have a low wage and you're hiring and you're making robots do the jobs that these people are supposed to do. And the very few people that you do have, you overwork them to death, and then they want to leave. And then you wonder why things are the way they are. And that's really it. And AI is only going to make this worse. It's not going to make the situation better. It's gonna help destroy us. And when the time comes when there's AI truck drivers, which is gonna be very scary. I don't even want to drive on the highway anymore. Okay, when they start doing that, but it's gonna be a really scary thing how a lot of these people who just made it to get their high school diploma, because a lot of them aren't college graduates. Okay, you can be, but a lot of them aren't, and that's fine. There's not a lot of people that are gonna go through college, but these are jobs for them. Why get rid of them? Why would you hurt the same people that would vote for you? It doesn't make sense. Other than greed, that's the only thing I can see here. And it's a big problem, and it's got to be stopped. It's got to be regulated. So the question I really pose to this is, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, I mean, all I can really think of in terms of like a realistic outcome that's not shitty or less shitty is that the job market just changes in a way that people end up with jobs that work for them. Like, I guess like a federal jobs program would be good for that. But that might not be enough, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
maybe we'll get to a
tough.
point where UBI, going back to Yang as the example, like he like automation and AI was kind of the thing that made him say, "Oh, this is why we need this because we need to guarantee people have like a minimum that they have to survive." And you can critique like the UBI that Yang proposed, like his version of it, and say, "Oh, well, actually, like, it didn't cover like if you it didn't account for people who were taking having certain programs or whatever." But in general, that idea that yeah, everyone needs like a minimum, that might be like a realistic prospect for the future as AI takes more jobs, as things get more automated, and you're out of if you're have only a high school diploma or whatever might happen, like, and you can't work like a super specialized proficient job and you need to do something in the short term, that might have to be a substitute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
But
we just gotta hope and pray for the best, especially on this issue. I think honestly, out of all the topics that we cover, and we cover, unfortunate deaths, and we cover unfortunate things that happen. But I think this is probably the most concerning one because this is gonna really dictate everyone's future,
yeah,
and that's something that you could only change now. And if you don't change it now or start to, we're gonna see the problems occur just more and more and more. And that is my final say on the matter as of right now.
yeah, on to the final topic. Penny charged with manslaughter. You might be wondering, who's Penny? uh, Daniel Penny, who was the man that's now we know the identity of who murdered Jordan Neely on the subway the other day or last week actually. So it actually came out today that he's being officially charged with manslaughter. Right now it's very new. He's going to be arraigned. They expect him to be arraigned later today, so on Friday. So when that happens, we'll know the specifics of the charges and how things are going to proceed in the future. And yeah, I mean, it's really good that, the public pressure and the protest actually paid off in this respect, that, this guy will likely be seeing some kind of justice. At the very least, he's being tried. Because it's very uncommon. I mean, when people disrespect or do hate crimes or anything against, a certain class of people, the homeless, they can kind of get away with it. Like it often doesn't get reported on. These people, it's not like their lives are documented. They don't have a home. They don't really have people to support them oftentimes. So to see like, someone get murdered in broad daylight, quite literally, um, it's good that, despite the fact that they don't have those things or he didn't have those things, that, there's still a community of people who are like, hey, this is wrong, and we're gonna stand up and charge him. And yeah, I mean, that's the gist of what I have to say. Is there anything more you want to add?
Well, I mean, look, I made my piece last episode when we talked about this issue and we talked about, you know, Neely dying in the chokehold. I think it's really simple to say that. I mean, I understand that, if someone comes out and like maybe attacks you, but apparently he didn't attack him. He was just being, just
He
saying
was
things
being
verbally.
loud, but like I feel like everyone that's been on the subway for more than like a week has seen that
Yeah,
at some point, and it's not dangerous. It's just like, okay, this guy's like crazy, or this guy's like something's going on with him, you know?
and if he were to attack, I understand like you want to put him in a hold or whatever, and fine if he attacks you, but the reality of it is that he did not attack
Which I'm
them,
sure like
so that I know,
the defense
and
will be like, oh, it was self-defense. It was like he felt his life was endangered, which
yeah,
that's gonna be kind of a weak one, I think. Maybe
and
I'm wrong, but I don't. I feel like just especially because it was a recorded event too, and he held him for 15 minutes. So
that's what I was gonna mention. Yeah, it's 15 minutes. He was locked in a hold, and when you're in a hold for 15 minutes, and you know,
that almost feels like
I don't.
overkill.
That's why it's like when I see people on the subway and they were kind of videoing you, and it's like you gotta just tell this guy to stop. Like I know that not everyone, thinks we live in the world of, like Spider-Man 2, where like all the New Yorkers band together. But seriously, it's like I feel like a lot of the New Yorkers should have be like, all right, listen, get off of him, you know, or have done something. All right, there had to be somebody there to do so.
That's what I was saying
And
before. I mean,
yeah,
like, you know,
it's 15 minutes. It's
when
not
you're a
like
certain like, well, when you're like a certain class, because they were probably on the train, they probably saw him acting out, and they were like, oh, like, you know, whatever, like he's just being crazy, and then the guy was on him. So they disregarded it probably because yeah, they just wrote him off as like a crazy guy, and they were like, not my problem. And I
probably.
mean,
I
obviously, like
understand that.
that's a pro, like it's bad that the society thinks like that and does stuff like that, but it's true. And I mean, the fact that there is this outcry and this, you know, protest and all that, because not only does it bring attention to the guy that killed him, it also brings attention to, hey, I mean, maybe we shouldn't just be content when like certain things happen, and when you just see stuff, maybe we should do something, maybe we should intervene. Obviously, it's not going to change overnight, but it brings that attention to people, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it brings the attention of especially something like that. Like I said, like 15 minutes. I think that there's definitely like people, like I know they're videotaping it, and people think that they're doing their due diligence by recording it, and maybe one guy is, but when you have like 10 people recording the same thing, it's like, okay, when is the real person going to step up here and say, hey, listen, that's enough? If I'll put it this way, if enough New Yorkers were to band together on it, and you got like 5 guys, you're telling me no one could take on this other dude? 5 or 10 guys, like subways are packed.
But I mean, what's the
Okay,
likelihood that like they can coordinate that in the time it takes, though? You know what I mean? Unless it's already
it
just
was
a group of us.
15 minutes. There were people there trying to like, all right, yeah, get him off or whatever, and they were trying to make sure if he's alive or not. But no one was actually doing anything about it. It's like 15 minutes,
Yeah, but
Andrew. It's not like he was
the guy
there.
was the
It's not
Marine.
like it's a 2 minute. Okay, he was in the Marine. Okay, it was not like a 2 minute hold. It was 15 minutes. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. Again, it's bad, but you don't know. Again, like I said the last time we talked about it, you don't know what it's like until you're there. You don't know what the
I
dynamic is in the moment. I mean, do you
I
think he would have run
understand
up and
that.
tried to save that guy? Like, who
Yeah, no,
knows, right?
I understand that.
So,
Um, because like I say, I like to think that I would. Okay, but again, there's sometimes where you don't understand the situation of why this happened. Like you don't know if he hit him or not. You know. But the people that did see the whole interaction,
and also too,
that
you have
is
to
another
think
thing.
about it also. Like, he was choking the guy out, but what if like someone tried to jump at him and he just snapped his neck, you know, or made it worse? So it's like, I mean,
But what if like that, man? I mean, like I said, there could have been other people there that could have did something if you had like a bunch of guys on
but
that
again, like,
train.
how
Which
are you gonna
there were.
coordinate that? Like, what's the likelihood that 5 people are just like who are willing to do that are gonna just be on the train?
True, it's true. I mean, it's just rough. It's just unfortunate
It's a
to
shit
see.
situation. I agree.
Yeah, and I just really hope the best for, I mean, I guess the father's the only one left alive. The mother, unfortunately, we talked about last episode, and she was strangled. same way he was, which is, as you mentioned, it's not only tragic but creepy in a way. So
I mean, I just wish the best for
the family, the father, and
the homeless community of New York.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's some kind of wake-up call. Not likely, but it's something.
We could dream that it's a wake-up call, but we've seen time and time again that if politicians don't want to do anything, they won't do anything. So, and that's my stance on it.
Yeah.
Is that all?
Bittersweet note to end on.
Yeah. So, everyone, thank you so much for being a part of this channel, watching this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, this is actually one of the first times I don't know how long we went on for, because I'm not doing it this time. It's actually Andrew. So, which is pretty cool. You got to see some new stuff, new transitions, like a smoother transition than usual, which was great. If you really enjoy this type of content, again, leave a like, subscribe. On Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're viewing this from. And we thank you again very much for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.
Yeah. Peace. All right. We're good.